David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
If you've been watching the White House coronavirus press briefings, you probably realize by now that it is all coming off the walls, and the World Mental Health Coalition is now urging Donald Trump to resign over being, as they say, severely mentally troubled in the middle of a pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, which is leading to increasingly horrifying numbers of deaths here in the United States. The White House the World Mental Health Coalition posted a prescription for survival where they point out that they've been warning about Trump since 2017. They've had countless psychiatrists point out the dangers of Donald Trump in a position of power on countless issues. And now with the coronavirus pandemic spreading and Trump completely on the wrong side of just about every element of it, while increasingly belligerent in his delusions of grandeur, the World Mental Health Coalition now outlines a prescription for what they believe should happen. And this includes some combination of using the 25th Amendment to remove Trump, a new impeachment attempt on the basis of his mishandling of coronavirus, Trump straight up resigning, a court-ordered mental health eval, or the removal of his decision-making ability on coronavirus, as well as the suspension of the White House press briefings themselves, suggesting that it should really be the CDC doing these briefings without political interference, which I agree with. Now, unfortunately, none of these things are going to happen. Donald Trump's cabinet is not going to invoke the 25th Amendment on Trump. They're just not. It's to even dream of a different outcome is simply not based in reality. Impeaching Trump over this, even if the House impeached Trump over his coronavirus response, it's not going to happen in the Senate. So that isn't going to be happening. Trump is obviously not going to resign the presidency. There will, of course, be no mental health evaluation forced on Donald Trump, and nobody's going to remove Trump's decision-making power on the virus. As far as Trump stopping the press briefings, good luck. Trump yesterday, for example, wasn't even scheduled to do a press briefing, but told people around him, hey, it's free TV and they get good ratings. So that is not something that is going to change. Trump can't do rallies right now because of social distancing. So he's doing the press briefings instead. So we have a situation where the United States is 39th in the world in per capita testing, not first, as Donald Trump has now claimed multiple times. The U.S. response was slow. It was wrong-headed on many fronts, which we've outlined to you. Daily, Trump is spreading disinformation like it'll go away like a miracle in April. We have 15 cases and we will soon have 0. Sometimes a scarf is more effective than a mask, and on and on and on. But in the midst of all of this, the only opportunity to remove Donald Trump is in November by voting him out. And that is something he is going to make as difficult as possible for people to do. Now, of course, I'm not arguing that the World Mental Health Coalition is wrong. Of course they are right. Trump's presidency has become deadly on this issue, as if it wasn't already deadly before on a number of different issues. But expecting any of these suggestions, 25th Amendment, resignation, forcing a mental health evaluation on Trump, it's just not going to happen. So let's focus our energy on two things that we know work. What do we know works? Social distancing works. Now, unfortunately, more and more right-wing churchgoers are not only ignoring social distancing, they are scofflaws when it comes to it. They are deliberately doing the exact opposite. We'll get to that later in the show. But social distancing works and we should be doing it. Number two, voting Trump out in November. You don't need to convince Trump's cabinet to invoke any amendment. You don't need to force anything on. You just vote him out. Okay, so he is not going to be removed by any of these other means that I've mentioned. Let's do what we can. Social distance now. Remove Trump in November. Let's now talk about the Trump approval rating on coronavirus. Hint, it has absolutely imploded. Now, you might remember a few weeks ago, now I guess really like 3.5 weeks ago, earlier in the coronavirus pandemic, we saw that Donald Trump was sporting a pretty healthy approval rating when it came to his handling of the virus. And we were wondering why. And most likely it was a few things that were sort of buoying, for lack of a better term, Donald Trump's approval rating in general and on the virus. Number one, there was the sort of rally around the president factor, which is often in play early in a crisis, where you have more people than agree with the president politically say, I support the president and they're doing a good job, at least so far. You also, 3.5 weeks ago, had a whole bunch of U.S. states that didn't have many cases. So there were many more people in the country that could feel, rightly or wrongly, like it was under control because their state didn't have many cases. Now, of course, it is a virus, meaning it spreads virally. We now have 13 states with more than 5,000 cases. We have 30 states with more than 1,000 cases, and every single state other than Wyoming has had deaths. So both the reality of rally around the president and the reality of my state's doing fine, both of those things have changed. They've faded. And the disapproval now of Trump on the virus is up 9 points. It was 43% disapproval in mid-March. It is up to 52% disapproval. That's a climb of more than 20%. And if things keep going the way they're going, both in terms of the numbers and in terms of Trump's unhinged response, I would expect that disapproval on Trump's handling of the virus is going to keep going up. The rally around the flag, rally around the leader stuff is very common, but it doesn't last forever. And we have had one of the worst responses total. We are testing per capita 39th in the world. Trump regularly claims we are doing the most tests per capita. We're not really sure he understands what per capita means, but he claims that we're doing the most tests per capita. Trump insults reporters at press conferences who ask real questions. Trump attacks media outlets. Trump recommends dangerous behavior, suggests medications during press conferences, brags about dating models during his press briefings. And every day, we are continuing to see more and more states have these bigger and bigger numbers of cases. Eventually, it was bound to affect his approval. Now, a few things to keep in mind. Number one, this kind of piggybacks on our earlier story about the World Mental Health Coalition demanding Trump be removed. Number one, Trump's approval on coronavirus may keep going down if his handling of the virus remains poor, but the power of cults is very strong, and Trump has a powerful cult around him that is going to support him no matter what. We're going to get to that a little bit later with some examples, but just like Jim Jones got his followers to drink cyanide-laced Kool-Aid, Trump's followers are going to keep insisting that Trump is handling this well, just like Trump says he's doing during his own press briefings. So we can only expect his approval to fall a little bit more because of that cultish support around him. Number two, there will be no consequences to Donald Trump's mishandling of this crisis unless we remove him in November, which means voting. He's not going to be impeached. He's not going to be removed by the 25th Amendment, none of it. So is it good that Trump's approval on coronavirus is coming down instead of going up? Yeah, of course it's good. It means some of the people in this country are at least tangentially tied to reality. But Trump's response to the virus has been diabolical and depraved. And to see disapproval after 2 months at only 52% is incredibly disturbing. And so we just need to be realistic in our expectations. Death toll goes up. They claim the death toll isn't accurate. We started seeing that last week. Cases spike wildly. They claim it's only because our testing is so good and so widespread. So we've got to remember they will always talk their way out of any piece of data that we can present. And we can only expect the approval to fall so much because of the cult of personality around Donald Trump. And a little bit later in the show, I will have some stunning video of some of these cultists that you won't believe, or maybe you will believe if you've been watching this show and paying attention to the news for the last few years. Want to remind you, this Thursday, April 9, we are doing a one-day membership bomb. We lost 389 members in March, the most we've ever seen cancel. And it's because of the tightening of the belt around the virus. We understand it. Everybody is in a many people are in a precarious situation. So we get it. So the idea is this Thursday, we're going to do a one-day membership special, biggest discount of the year. If you want to be notified by email of the membership discount code, grab a mailing list subscription for free at davidpakman.com. Just sign up for our mailing list this Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. An email will go out with a code. And the idea is we've already lost a bunch of members early in April. We lost 389 in March. We want to try to do something cohesive and community oriented to try to bring back some of that support. We're all in this thing together. Get on that mailing list at davidpakman.com. In the meantime, let me know on Twitter, are you watching Trump's press briefings on the virus every day, most days, once a week, never? I want to hear from you. I'm on Twitter at dpakman.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Today's new members of the day are Nathaniel Jacobson and Aaron Burke. Thanks, guys. Very much appreciate your support in these complex times financially for many people. Also want to say thanks to Adam Cooper. Adam is today's longtime sustaining member of the day. Grab a membership at joinpakman.com today. So during yesterday's White House coronavirus press briefing, there was a truly chilling moment that needs a little bit of explanation. Donald Trump at one point literally stepped up to the podium and would not allow Dr. Anthony Fauci to answer a question about hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine, this one of many possible therapeutic treatments for coronavirus that is currently being tested. And instead of explaining the whole backstory first, I'm just going to play the video for you, and then I'm going to give you the whole story after that.
Also weigh in on this issue of hydroxychloroquine. What do you think about this, and what is the medical evidence?
That question?
Yeah. Well,
Maybe
the
15,
doctor.
15 times. You don't have to ask.
He's your medical expert, correct?
He's answered that question 15 times.
Dr. Fauci, why are you not wearing a face mask?
So Dr. Fauci stands there looking uncomfortable, and Donald Trump makes it clear Dr. Fauci doesn't have to answer, meaning Dr. Fauci should not answer that question. And then another question gets yelled up. So what is this all about? So here's the backstory. Trump has been talking about hydroxychloroquine for a while now as a possible game changer, the big possible cure for the virus. And the truth is, it's one treatment that is being tested. There are some significant side effects. It's a high-risk thing for people with certain cardiac situations. And there are conflicting studies about, is chloroquine better than placebo and or the established course of treatment or not? So Trump has been pretty irresponsible in touting it constantly, saying, what do you have to lose by trying it? Of course, some people potentially would lose their lives by trying it. People are trying to stockpile it. Certain governors have been picking it up. There are shortages for people who take the medication for its actual approved conditions like lupus and some others. Now, every time Fauci has been asked about it in the past, he will say something like, listen, it's a good drug for some conditions. We don't have any data yet that says it is actually effective for coronavirus. We need proper randomized controlled trials for using this medication on COVID-19, period. But when I saw this and I saw Trump immediately jump in and prevent Dr. Fauci from answering the question, I suspected there was more to it. And case in point, in the few hours right after last night's press briefing, we got that additional information. Over the weekend, on Saturday, there was a heated fight in the Situation Room involving Dr. Fauci about chloroquine. And one of Donald Trump's bomb throwers, Peter Navarro, was fully in it and apparently furious with Dr. Fauci. So this happened Saturday afternoon. Mike Pence was there. Dr. Fauci was there. Dr. Birx, Jared Kushner, Chad Wolf, Stephen Hahn, and indeed Peter Navarro was there. He's a right-wing economist and big-time Trump brown-noser. When the topic of hydroxychloroquine was brought up, Navarro got up and grabbed a big stack of folders and dropped them onto the table. And everybody started looking at the papers in the folders. And Navarro said, Here are copies of studies that show that clearly chloroquine works to treat coronavirus. And Navarro was pushing for the Trump administration to talk about it. Just talk about it like it works. Talk about it like a proven treatment. This was too much for Dr. Fauci. And Dr. Fauci rightly said, this is anecdotal. This is not data. These are not RCTs, randomized controlled trials. This is irresponsible. We can't go out and promote this like a treatment. Studies that have been done have no or poor control groups. There are studies that say this does not work. So Dr. Fauci is trying to do what a doctor does, not succumbing to political pressure from a right-wing economist, which is what Pete Navarro is. This apparently set off Pete Navarro. He started angrily pointing to the pile of folders, saying that's science, not anecdote. Navarro raised his voice, accused Dr. Fauci of trying to prevent Trump's travel restrictions, which is crazy since Dr. Fauci from the beginning praised those travel restrictions. This is apparently something that in the room also got people looking confused, because most people in the room knew that Dr. Fauci had indeed been praising the travel restrictions. So question one is it common that people are yelling at each other during the Situation Room meetings about coronavirus? The answer is no. This is reportedly the first time that this happened. But we now have a backstory that explains what we saw yesterday. So now, knowing the backstory, let's look at it one more time. Trump praising hydroxychloroquine like a miracle cure, which it is not proven to be. Reporter tries to get Dr. Fauci to comment, and Dr. Fauci not allowed to answer the question.
You also weigh in on this issue of hydroxychloroquine. What do you think about this, and what is the medical evidence?
That question?
Yeah. Well, I'd
Maybe
love to hear from the
15.
doctor.
15 times. You don't have to ask the question.
He's your medical expert, correct?
He's answered that question 15 times.
Dr. Fauci, why are you not wearing a face mask?
Truly chilling, because we have a president concerned only with the political response to the virus. You have an economic advisor, Peter Navarro, concerned only with the optics of the response and doing things to try to bolster the stock market, not actually find and develop safe, proven cures. And you now have a doctor literally being silenced by Trump on the world stage during a press briefing. You've heard me use the term weaponized ignorance before, weaponized arrogance, weaponized delusions of grandeur. And what I mean by that, to weaponize something is to take something and use it as a weapon. So someone can be arrogant, and someone would also be able to weaponize that arrogance if they are in a position of power or whatever the case may be. I have a video today of weaponized right-wing religious delusions. This is a combination of ignorance, gullibility, such that you believe everything Trump says, combined with just straight up religious delusion. And as some of you may know, there are people in particularly red states who are packing churches every weekend, despite federal social distancing guidelines that have already been extended at least until the end of April, despite the known reality that social distancing does help slow the infectious spread of coronavirus. So CNN reporter Gary Tuchman went to Ohio to one of these huge churches that's packing its services full of people. And on the way out, there was a huge line of cars. It was almost like you were leaving, a sporting event or a concert, huge line of cars heading out. And Gary Tuchman a woman opens the window in her car and is interviewed by Gary Tuchman on the way out. The woman represents everything that is wrong with this country. Religious, not in a reasonable way, but in an outrageous way that is really more reminiscent of schizophrenic delusions for which people would normally be medicated than anything else, with the added layer of weaponizing her arrogance into thinking that, of course, she knows more about the virus than the doctors and the Democrats and the news media. She can't get the virus, she says, because she is covered in the blood of Jesus. This is not an exaggeration. Take a look at the video.
Driving out of this Ohio parking lot is a woman who just attended a church service with dozens of other people, including children.
Can I ask you about your decision to go to church, to be inside that building?
I wouldn't be anywhere else.
Aren't you concerned you could infect other people if you get sick inside?
No.
People who don't go to this
No.
church.
I'm covered in Jesus' blood. I'm covered in Jesus'
But what
blood.
about other people who don't go to this church who you might encounter?
All of these people go to this church.
No, but you're going to be in places where other people
I go to the grocery store every day. I'm in Walmart,
What?
Home Depot, all of those
But you
people.
could get them sick from what happens in
They
the
could
church.
get me sick, but they're not because I'm covered in his blood. Thank you very much.
That was not a skit on Saturday Night Live. That was not a comedy movie. That's real life. Those are the people we are relying on to socially distance with us to try to stop the spread of coronavirus. We've got some real problems in this country. The world sees that and they laugh and they cry, but that's not that rare here in the United States. Now, lots of people will say, David, don't worry, it's Darwinism. It's some kind of, that's natural selection. She thinks she's protected by the blood of Jesus. She's really not. She wants to do this. She will die. I wish it were that simple, but that's not how it works. When you're talking about a highly contagious virus, people like that are infecting other people. Whether or not they suffer, they are going to lead to other people getting infected, to other people, some dying. She is not concerned for anyone else's safety anyway, as you can probably tell. So this is not about all churches. This is not about all religious people. Every church I've driven by here in Massachusetts is closed. They have signs that say, stay at home, trust in God and stay at home. If God exists, God understands, we must stay at home for the shared safety of our communities. It is not all churches, but it is a lot of these whacked out mega churches in the Midwest and in the South. Also, she says she's going to the grocery store every day. Every day? Even if you aren't worried, any sensible person should be going as little as possible to the grocery store. Go once a week, go less if you're able. Why every day? These folks are actually we have a crisis in this country where when we have a challenge to deal with, half the country is actively working against us. They're not working against us in a passive way. They are actively working against us. And also, not that I need to bring this up to most of you, covered in the blood of Jesus. That entire imagery is vile to me. I don't know how that's considered a peaceful image to Christians in any way. But in any case, this is the cultish nonsense that is actually killing people. And unfortunately, I know so many people say, screw her, let her die. It's not about her. If that were only it, I'd still care about the fact that this woman might die. But at least I would say she's not endangering other people. We can't just write it off and say, well, too bad for her. She's going to suffer. These decisions, these packed churches, all of the stuff that is going on, ignoring the social distancing guidelines, is leading to people dying. The cultish nonsense is literally killing people. We'll have more about this on the David Pakman Show Instagram page. Make sure you're following us on Instagram at David Pakman Show. While you're there, follow me on Instagram at david.pakman.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
So a sort of novelty from last week was Donald Trump's son-in-law showing up to a White House coronavirus press briefing with Donald Trump. And Jared Kushner is Donald Trump's slumlord son-in-law, married to Ivanka Trump, son of convicted felon Charles Kushner. And Jared Kushner thinks he can manage his way to success no matter what the challenge. He was put in charge of solving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict for Donald Trump. You probably have some idea of how well that's going so far. So Kushner shows up at a press conference last week, and his presence is completely sinister in nature. I actually posted a poll on my Twitter page asking who disturbs you more by being at the White House press briefings, and by just a massive margin. About 18,000 people voted. It was Kushner by a long shot, 78-22. Kushner more disturbing than the MyPillow guy. And I have to say, I totally agree. The MyPillow guy was a religious nut, Trump-supporting brown noser, but he's at least just trying to make some masks for healthcare workers. Jared Kushner's involvement in the coronavirus response is actually downright ominous. So let's look at one clip from Kushner. We'll look at another clip in a second segment. Jared was asked about all of the state governors who have been asking for ventilators. They've been asking for masks and other supplies, and not all of them have been getting them. And Jared Kushner pulls some sort of total management consulting mumbo jumbo about how the federal stockpile is our stockpile, not for the states. And of course, the question is, who is us? Like when he says the federal stockpile is for us, who are the people that he's referring to? Take a look at this completely unintelligible, sinister, depraved clip.
And you have instances where in cities they're running out, but the state still has a stockpile. And the notion of the federal stockpile was it's supposed to be our stockpile. It's not supposed to be state stockpiles that they then use. So we're encouraging the states to make sure that they're assessing the needs, they're getting the data from their local situations, and then trying to fill it with the supplies that we've given them. The same thing with the masks.
The notion of the federal stockpile was it's supposed to be our stockpile, not the state stockpiles that they then use. So, of course, it's supposed to be our stockpile is our and us being who? Doesn't everyone live in one of the states? Like, is he saying the stockpile is only for people who live in D.C., Puerto Rico, Guam? Like, what does it mean that it's for us and not for the states? Who is the stockpile for? It's a sinister, ominous, Orwellian explanation. And you know how you can tell that Jared messed up here? Because the next day, Donald Trump was asked about it. And when he was asked about it, he told the reporter that they should be ashamed of themselves. When Donald Trump tells a reporter you should be ashamed of yourself, it means it's a good question. It means Trump's up against the wall, and it means Trump is trying to defend the indefensible. Check this out from the day after.
Yesterday, Jared Kushner said the notion of the federal stockpile was it's supposed to be our stockpile. It's not supposed to be state stockpiles that they then use. What did he mean by our?
Oh, what are you asking?
And given the fact that taxpayers from
What's
every
that? I got
state
you.
need
I
to
got
work.
you.
No,
You
it's
used the
not a
word
gotcha.
our.
What
Our, you know what our means? United States of America. That's what it means. It means
the states.
our. It means the United States of America. And then we take that our and we distribute it to the states.
So why did
Not
you say
that we
it's
have
not supposed to be state stockpiles that they then
because
use?
we need it for the government and we need it for the federal government. But when the states are in trouble, no, to
Then
also
who are you
keep
giving it to if it's not to the states?
to keep for our country, because the federal government needs it too, not just the states. But out of that, we oftentimes choose, as an example, we have almost 10,000 ventilators, and we are ready to rock with those ventilators. We're going to bring them to various areas of the country that need them. But when he says our, he's talking about our country. He's talking, he's talking about the federal government. I mean, it's such a basic, simple question, and you try and make it sound so bad. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You know what? You ought to be ashamed. It's such a simple question.
How shameful for a reporter to ask about a completely incoherent statement from someone, Jared Kushner, who has no business whatsoever managing the response to a virus pandemic. Trump is doing the same thing, by the way. Ours means the U.S. stockpile, not the state stockpile. So we give the stockpile to states, which Jared said we aren't doing because we need the stockpile for the federal government. What? The stockpile is to treat federal government employees? Like, what on earth is it that they are arguing here? And then now we get to the really Orwellian twist. Right after Jared Kushner said this last week, it's our stockpile, not the states. The national stockpile website was changed. Before Jared Kushner's delusional comment, the stockpile website said, the stockpile is the nation's largest supply of life-saving pharmaceuticals and medical supplies for use in an emergency that causes local supplies to run out. When states request assistance, the stockpile ensures they get what they need. That's what it said before Jared Kushner's sinister Orwellian statement. After Kushner's statement, the website was immediately changed, and it now simply says, the stockpile is to supplement state supplies. Many states have stockpiles. This can be a stopgap buffer. if states don't immediately have everything available. A much softer view on the role of the stockpile for states. Jared Kushner, ladies and gentlemen, a sinister, Orwellian, gerbil-voiced lunatic at these press briefings, has no business whatsoever being there. And I actually have one more Jared Kushner clip to talk about here. I have a challenge for you today. I challenge anyone to tell me what substance Jared Kushner communicated in the 60-second video that I'm about to show you. I already mentioned earlier that Donald Trump's slumlord son-in-law, Jared Kushner, son of convicted felon Charles Kushner, showed up at the White House coronavirus press briefing last Thursday. And his presence was not only sinister, it was also dystopian. At one point, Jared Kushner went on this rant about how the stockpile is for us, it's not for the states. Blah, 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 blah. At another point, Jared Kushner spoke for 58 seconds in a screed laced with meaningless management buzzwords that I believe is record-setting. I believe that in the 60 seconds I'm going to play for you, Jared Kushner has set a record for the most meaningless buzzwords per minute without communicating anything of substance whatsoever. So let's look at it together. And what I suggest you do is really focus in, make an effort not to be lulled by the words that he's saying, and realize that he's speaking a lot, but he's saying zero. He's not saying anything here. The question to Jared was about, data being used to make decisions. When do you send ventilators and masks and supplies to states? Jared has famously said, New York is asking for more ventilators than they really need. States don't really need all the stuff they're asking for. And he's sort of addressing here how decisions are being made. I contend Jared says nothing of substance in his answer. Take a look here.
What the president asked is that all of the recommendations that we make be based on data. He wanted us to be very rigorous to make sure that we were studying the data, collecting data. A lot of things in this country were happening very quickly, and we wanted to make sure that we were trying to keep updating our models and making sure that we were making informed decisions and informed recommendations to him based on the data that we were able to collect and put together. The president wanted to make sure that we had the best people doing the best jobs and making sure that we had the right people focused on all of the things that needed to happen to make sure that we can deliver in these unusual times for the American people. The president also instructed me to make sure that I break down every barrier needed to make sure that the teams can succeed. This is an effort where the government is doing things that the government doesn't normally do. We're stretching, we're acting very quickly, and the president wants to make sure that the White House is fully behind the different people running the different lines of effort to make sure that we get everything done in a speed that the president demands.
We collect and look at data, we update models, we make decisions and make recommendations based on the data. We get the best people in the right jobs. We have people focused correctly. We want to deliver. Teams must succeed. We are breaking down barriers. Donald Trump directed us to act quickly on this. Jared Kushner said nothing. And you know that Ivanka's sitting at home super impressed with this. Wow, look at that great job that Jared's doing. Mike Pence was standing nearby, looking pleased with that dumb smirk on his face because it sounded good. Like clearly this guy is more articulate than Donald Trump, and people were probably refreshed in a way that he wasn't struggling to get through a sentence like Donald Trump, but he said nothing. And this is called management in some circles. What Jared Kushner said there, not doing anything. I'm not talking about doing anything. Just saying stuff like that is called effective management in some circles. And so this is why we have a real problem. So my challenge remains, tell me what data and actions were actually communicated there by Jared Kushner. I'm hoping that we don't see Jared back at another one of these press conferences ever again.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
So we have no shortage of gaslighting in 2020 and specifically around the pandemic. But what really takes the cake in my view is that Fox News has now started to pretend that they never downplayed the virus, that they never said it was a hoax, that they never said it was a great time to get on an airplane or to go to a restaurant because there wouldn't be anybody else there. They are pretending they never gave platforms to any right-wing clowns that wanted to minimize the virus and defend President Trump. And they are now trying to revise history, much like Donald Trump has tried to do. And they are doing it because they're starting to get sued for having spread coronavirus disinformation. Here's Sean Hannity. Remember, Hannity famously put up an image a few weeks ago bragging about coronavirus deaths 0. Here's Hannity the same night ridiculing everyone who took this seriously from day one.
Tonight, I can report the sky is absolutely falling. We are all doomed. The end is near. The apocalypse is imminent, and you're going to all die, all of you, in the next 48 hours. And it's all President Trump's fault.
Here's Hannity again downplaying it on March 9th.
In all seriousness, I think we've got to be very real with the American people. I don't like how we are scaring people unnecessarily. And that is that unless you have an immune system that's compromised and you are older and you have other underlying health issues, you are not going to die 99% from this virus, correct?
That's correct, Sean. And it's good to be with you again.
All right, so that's the point. I mean, they're scaring the living hell out of people, and I see it again as like, oh, let's bludgeon Trump with this new hoax.
That was Republican bomb-throwing Trump sycophant Congressman Doug Collins very much agreeing with Sean Hannity's assessment, but most importantly, Hannity actually calling it a hoax. Now, here's Hannity 11 days later saying he was always taking it seriously.
Yeah, and I think what we're looking
kind of laugh at it, but nothing to laugh at here. By the way, this program has always taken the coronavirus seriously, and we've never called the virus a hoax. We call what they're doing, trying to bludgeon the president out. Their politicizing of this virus, well, predictable, despicable, repulsive, all of the above.
Here are other segments from Fox News, including Janine Pirro saying coronavirus is proof merely of an anti-Trump agenda, Hannity calling the virus a political weapon, the now fired host Trish Regan, we'll get to her later, saying the left is stoking chaos, Laura Ingraham saying the virus is a leftist smear campaign, and on and on and on. Here's lunatic Jesse Waters downplaying it on March 3rd.
You want to know how I really feel about the coronavirus, Juan? If I get it, I'll beat it. I'm not lying. It's called the power of positive thinking, and I think America needs to wake up to that. I'm not afraid of the coronavirus, and no one else should be that afraid either.
And then here's the same Jesse Waters, not even a month later on April 1st, pretending he was always taking it seriously, but there were some Democrats who weren't taking it seriously.
Cuomo was saying, go eat out in New York City. De Blasio had all the schools open. Nancy Pelosi said, bring your friends to Chinatown and go to the bars. Joe Biden said the travel ban was racist. Every column in the New York Times, the Washington Post downplayed this thing. And actually, Morning Joe had the audacity the other day to say that everybody saw this coming in January. Do you know how many segments Morning Joe did on the virus in January? 1. They booked a guy who said, don't worry about this virus, worry about the flu. Finally, everyone's on board. Young people, old people, left, right. We're all in this together now, and we need to stay together until we beat.
So now Jesse Waters saying he was one of the few people taking it seriously all along. They are now gaslighting. We could do examples of this all day long. And they're simply taking the lead from Trump. This is what you have to really understand about this entire sort of echo chamber. For weeks, Trump downplayed the virus. And so did Fox News. So did Rush Limbaugh. So did everybody. Now, Trump is pretending he never downplayed it, pretending he always took it seriously, pretending he always knew it was going to be a pandemic. I think he said last week he knew it was a pandemic before it was even being said publicly. And so now Fox News is doing the exact same thing. They're very predictable caricatures, in a sense, truly sad state of affairs in the country. But all of this is completely predictable. When it comes down to knowledge and facts and thinking, this was exactly what we would have assumed that they were going to do. And of course, the real concern, the serious issue at the tail end of this, whenever we get to it, is that they may get away with it. They have a confident, dishonest ignorance is the kind of best way I can summarize it. They are dishonest. They are ignorant to the facts, but they do so confidently on their airwaves. And unfortunately, unless we have a long memory, they may not suffer because of it. And so my greatest fear is, of course, that the death toll will be so much higher than it needed to be because of the terrible response from the president and the terrible responses that we saw from the right-wing media that basically just play to Trump's base. That's concern number one, the death toll. Once it's all said and done and it's time to decide, are we reelecting Trump or are we voting him out? I worry that that confident, irresponsible, ignorant dishonesty will lead to too many people saying, would have been worse without Trump, let's vote to reelect him. And that is genuinely an increasing fear that I have because of the degree to which that cultish following of Trump is convinced that he's been doing the right thing all along. We'll keep following it and trying to make the case that that is not the situation. Fox and Friends invited Dr. Fauci on TV, and Brian Kilmeade tried to explain medicine to Dr. Fauci, and it really didn't go well. Now, we have a number of different Fox News sort of related clips today. We already did Fox News trying to rewrite history, pretending they were always taking the virus seriously. And what has happened on Fox News over the last 8 weeks regarding coverage of the virus has been borderline criminal. I'm not saying it is criminal, but Fox News is being sued, and they likely will be sued more times for their spreading of disinformation about the virus. Later, we'll get to more about that. But for now, here's what happened. I have a clip for you from Fox and Friends where they invited on Dr. Anthony Fauci. Dr. Anthony Fauci, of course, the top infectious disease doctor in the country. And Brian Kilmeade tried to explain to him how medicine works, and it didn't go well. So let's get right into the clip. What they're talking about when we pick it up is a survey. It's not a clinical study, a survey of doctors around the world. And in the survey, doctors were asked, what are you giving people for coronavirus treatment? And it's really important to understand that it is a survey. And they also ask, what have you seen be effective when you've given it to people? We are linking to the survey. I will talk about the survey momentarily, but let's take a look at the clip. Listen to Brian Kilmeade's confident, ignorant arrogance trying to explain medications to Dr. Fauci, and then pay special attention to the silence at the end of the clip, which shows that Fauci realizes there's not actually a factual assertion to address, while Brian Kilmeade is just sitting there waiting expectant.
75% of everyone in Spain is taking with success. French and Chinese take it, and their doctors are taking it. There's a lot of positive things, and I would be very curious, doctor, to see if anyone who's taken this for lupus or arthritis has gotten the coronavirus. That would be one way to go the other way to see about this study. But let's talk about some way to get. Do you want to respond to that?
No, I mean, obviously this is a good drug in many respects for some of the diseases you mentioned. And the one thing we don't want to happen is that individuals who really need a drug with a proven indication don't have it available. But just one, I can't escape getting back to, you said 75% of doctors think that it works. We really don't care what 75% think it works. You know, that's not the issue.
No, I should clarify, because I said Spain, 72% of the doctors in Spain are prescribing it.
Okay, good. Okay, well, that's fine.
We almost need a new term called Fox-splaining. Fauci has to be commended for being endlessly patient with completely clueless people. So this study, as claimed by Brian Kilmeade, is the source of a ton of disinformation. It's a survey which asked doctors, indicate which medications, if any, you have personally prescribed or have seen used in your setting to fight COVID-19. And indeed, 61% of doctors in Spain have prescribed or seen chloroquine prescribed. Then the survey asks, and again, it's an observational survey based on the memory of doctors, of the medications you've personally prescribed or seen used, please indicate which ones are most effective. And again, globally, you have 37% saying, we think chloroquine is the most effective. But also remember that chloroquine is one of the most used. The numbers are not adjusted for that. 32% say Zithromax antibiotics, 32% say nothing has been effective, and then you've got other stuff. So think through the data. 37% on a survey say chloroquine seems to be the most effective. 32% say antibiotics. It just so happens chloroquine is also one of the most used, and antibiotics have been some of the most used. That does not suggest to me that we have proper data or anything approximating a randomized clinical trial. 32% altogether say nothing has been the most effective. So even if this wasn't a survey, like imagine that instead of just being a survey of what do doctors remember, imagine that this was some kind of properly controlled test. These numbers still don't actually tell us that much about chloroquine. So we've got to be really, really careful about this stuff. Now, I hope chloroquine works. I hope anything works. I have no ideological attachment to chloroquine with or without azithromycin. Trump has been touting it, so Fox is touting it. You need real doctors to test this stuff. This is how you end up in these fact-free worlds where the opinion of Brian Kilmeade, in the minds of many Fox viewers, is worth just as much as the opinion of Dr. Anthony Fauci, who, by the way, now needs armed security because of the threats from Trumpists who believe that Anthony Fauci is either some kind of anti-Trump plant or, even worse, some kind of deep state operative. That's the United States 2020 that we are now living in. So we all want something to work, but we need to detach ourselves from the political nonsense when we explore what might work. That's called science. We have dozens of existing medications that are being tested. There are new medications in process, combinations of those drugs. A huge portion of Trumpists are now emotionally attached to chloroquine. If it works, great, and I hope it does. Remember, if it works, we've been talking about it for weeks now, long before Donald Trump was. If it does work, remember, it will have nothing to do with Trump. If it doesn't work, it will have nothing to do with Trump. We need doctors and scientists telling us what works, not Brian Kilmeade and a confused and sleepy Donald Trump during press briefings. Okay, last Fox News clip for the day. I'm going to play for you today the video that should be at the top of the list of videos to scrub from the internet if you are the Trump administration and if you are Fox News. It is a video of a woman named Kayleigh McEnany, who is a press secretary for Donald Trump's 2020 campaign. She's been around for a while commenting on politics. She's a big Christian right-winger, often saying painfully dumb things. She went on Fox News a few weeks ago and said, not that the virus wouldn't be a big deal here in the United States because of something about its rate of spread or its death rate or because of something about infectious disease or a medication. She went on and said on Fox News, Donald Trump is America first. He's not going to allow a virus like coronavirus to come here. And she added, that's refreshing compared to the Obama administration. This is what happens when you join a cult, and she is in a cult, and that's the right word here. So the Trump campaign has been working hard to scrub videos from the internet of Trump referring to the virus as a hoax. If I were them, I would do everything I can to get this video off the internet. We're going to try to make it a little bit harder by playing the video for you now. This is Kayleigh McEnany being interviewed by former Fox host Trish Regan. Trish Regan has since been fired after going on her own unhinged rant about the coronavirus hoax. This is the clip in question. Take a look.
Looking at the coronavirus and the president saying, look, we're not going to take people in from China right now. I mean, isn't it just a matter of protecting us, our national security really being at stake? And he's sort of the last line of defense there, or first line, I should say.
Absolutely. This president will always put America first. He will always protect American citizens. We will not see diseases like the coronavirus come here. We will not see terrorism come here. And isn't that refreshing when contrasting it with the awful presidency of President Obama?
Kayleigh McEnany, thank you so much. Good to see you tonight.
Thank you.
Trish Regan there gleefully welcoming this absolutely abortive and fetid claim by Kayleigh McEnany. This, to me, is more highly weaponized than the dumb medical arguments that float around, because this is the type of argument that's actually immune to reality and facts. It's an argument like we've seen. So let me give you an example of arguments that we've seen. This is less of a concern than the flu because it is less deadly. That's wrong, but it's not immune to the facts, right? Most of the people, or many of the people saying it, don't care about the facts, but you can deal with it. You can say, oh, well, the flu death rate is 0.15. The death rate for the virus appears to be between 0.7 and 1.5. It's somewhere between 5 and 10 times deadlier. Okay. You don't need to social distance, some of them have said. Okay, here's evidence that you do. States social distancing or seeing a lower rate of case growth or whatever. Again, many people don't care about the facts, but you can have a conversation about it. Kayleigh's off the deep end in cult world. Trump is America first, so he won't allow the coronavirus into the U.S., unlike awful Obama. That's immune from fact. You're not operating in the real world. And Kayleigh often doesn't operate in the real world. Just check out her videos about abortion. And Trish Regan also doesn't operate in the real world. So it's really a perfect fit, actually, for the Fox News audience. Now, after this clip started to get attention, some spokesperson for Trump said, no. What Kayleigh meant was Trump won't allow the virus to come here from China because he banned travel. Okay, well, Trump banned China travel when Europe was already actually the focus of the disease. He was always 10 steps behind. And maybe most importantly, even after Trump banned travel from China, flights from China kept coming in for a full week after that point. So this is really ugly, weaponized ignorance that we're up against. We are up against a virally spreading virus, and we're up against virally spreading disinformation, and we're up against people who seem to have been inoculated against fact and reason, and that's a really tough place to be. We have a voicemail number. That number is 219-2-DAVID-P. Here is our old friend Troy York, who is very triggered by the discussion of Donald Trump's IQ, and he wants Dr. Fauci arrested.
Hey, David Pakman, I was just watching your video where you had the caller, the female caller who bashed President Trump, saying he has a low IQ and asking you what you thought his IQ was. This is Troy York, and I think that woman's IQ was 66. I think yours is 75. And I think you are have deep pockets for the deep state and communist China.
Right.
Trump has done a great job. He needs to overrule these authoritarian leaders in the blue states who have tried to wreck our economy for political power and because they hate Trumpsters. And I think that President Trump will overrule these stay-at-home orders. That was a disaster for our economy. Right. I think Dr. Anthony Fauci should be arrested for treason.
Fauci.
And basically, this has been a concentrated campaign, I believe, from the far left to discredit and once again attack this country and capitalism.
Right. So that when we talk about confident, weaponized arrogance and ignorance, that's what we're talking about. Arrest Fauci. This is all a left-wing plot. You've got a 75 IQ. That's what we're talking about. And that's someone who, it's really a case study. No matter what, that's someone who's voting for Trump in November, no matter how many deaths happen as a result of Trump's action. So that's what we're fighting against. And that's why get out the vote rather than argue with people is the strategy that we must employ. Let me remind you, Thursday, April 9, membership explosion, 1-day membership special. We're down like 75 members already in April. We lost 389 in March because of the virus. We are putting together a 1-day huge membership special. Email will go out on Thursday, April 9th. To be notified, all you need to do is get on our newsletter. Okay, go to davidpakman.com. On the website, you type in your email address, you're on the newsletter. Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, you will get that beautiful, beautiful email. And, of course, membership includes the bonus show coming up right after this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.